Hello, Potomac Crossing Ward. This is Come Follow Me, lesson 43 for Mormon 7, 8, and 9. Just some quick comments on what's going on in these three chapters. So, with Mormon chapter 1 through 6, the text is pretty straightforward. It's linear. He gives you a history, talks about what happened, and then puts some spiritual commentary in there, and then talks about the wars and fighting and puts some more spiritual commentary in there, and just kind of marches you through the history to keep track of where things are at and why the Nephites are on the decline, why they're losing their battles. And then the final war scene with the death of pretty much everybody is in Mormon chapter 6. So chapters 7, 8, and 9 change completely. You have text that is prophetic. It's no longer historical. And the tone and the tenor and the content totally change. So with Mormon chapter 7, that is Mormon's farewell to the Lehite remnant. So he's speaking in a future time to the remnants who will receive his record, hundreds, thousands of years later. He's speaking to them, and he says, here's the deal, guys. And then chapter 8 and 9 are Moroni speaking, and Moroni's address is much different, and he's addressing Gentiles. He's not addressing the Lehites, remnants of the Lehites. Okay, so Chapter 7, Mormon gives his farewell to the remnant of Lehi, whom he intends to address and educate concerning their covenant status as part of natural Israel. In chapter 8 and 9, Moroni, Mormon's son, gives a farewell address to the Gentiles, whom he knows will largely reject his father's written work. Both the author and the intended audience change between chapter 7 and 8 and 9, with a significant change in tone between the two sections of text as well. So, Mormon chapter 7, this chapter is Mormon's farewell to the Lehite remnant. He has witnessed firsthand the destruction of the Nephites, as predicted by Nephi himself in 1 Nephi 12, 11 through 19, and 1 Nephi 15, 5. Mormon knows that a remnant will be preserved until the last days, when these writings will be brought forth to them by the Gentiles, also as Nephi predicted in 1 Nephi chapter 13. As such, Mormon wants to focus squarely on those points he feels are most important for the Lehite remnant to hear. He does so by listing 4 points in verses 2 through 7, and then he presents those 4 points again in a unified discussion, explaining how they're related in verses 8 through 10. Mormon's comments here are a summary and distillation of the purpose and intent of the entire Book of Mormon. The text of the chapter is structured as an inverted parallelism, centering on verses 5 and 6, which focuses on the resurrection of Christ. Okay, and then Mormon chapters 8 and 9. In reading the text of these two chapters, one cannot help but notice how negative and probably depressed Moroni was, and how it's affecting what he wrote. For example, take Moroni's comments on his personal situation in chapter 8, verses 2 through 5. And just listen to how negative this is. The Nephites were all destroyed, and my father also was killed by them, and I even remain alone to write the sad tale of the destruction of my people. Whether they will slay me, I know not. Whither I go, it mattereth not. I am alone. My father hath been slain in battle, and all my kinsfolk, and I have not friends nor whither to go. And how long the Lord will suffer that I may live, I know not. I mean, that just sounds depressed and depressing. Moroni is fleeing for his life. Everybody he knows is dead. And he's kind of traipsing around the wilderness. I mean, this is pretty awful. Note how many times Moroni uses negatives like no, not, nor, and none, and he consistently frames his statements in the negative. Also consider the comment Mormon makes to Moroni concerning the effect all he has seen and is having on him in Moroni chapter 9, verse 25. Moroni's condition affects the text of these two chapters. The subject he's discussing is the same as that of 5:19 to 24 and the second Nephi chapter 27 reinterpretation of Isaiah 29. While both of those preceding texts are aimed at the Gentiles and are rather accusatory and harsh, they're nowhere near as negative and unrelenting as Moroni's blistering attack in chapter 8, verses 27 through 41, where his father Mormon was quite measured in his tone in addressing the remnant of Lehi in chapter 7. Moroni tears into the Gentiles in chapter 8 and 9. Now, another point worth noting is Moroni must have seen some kind of vision or had some kind of revelation concerning the purpose and importance of the plates which were entrusted with him. It's plain from 8:35 and 9:30, as well from the various very detailed descriptions from 8:26 through 9:29, that Moroni has had some sort of revelation. So then you have to ask yourself, why would the Lord grant such a thing? Moroni's been through a lot, and he still has to go through a lot before he deposits the plates. It's safe to assume the Lord reveals to him the importance of the plates and the extent to which they will impact future generations. Given Moroni's depressed state of, as manifested in 2 through 5, it would be easy to see him just giving up and wandering off if he didn't really understand what the implications of doing something like that would be. So we have a text in chapters 8 and 9 that's very negative, and we have to look at that and understand the context of where Moroni was at that point in his life, having just witnessed this horrific destruction, the death of his family, and now he's fleeing for his own life, and he's lugging around these plates, these 40, 50 pound plates, plus whatever gear he's hauling to survive. And it's got to be just awful, and that comes through the text. In his attitude, he knows that the Gentiles, by and large, are going to reject the message of the Book of Mormon, and he just tears into him for it. Some small percentage of the Gentiles will accept it, but most of them don't. And in chapters 8 and 9, he just absolutely tears into him, and he says, "Look, the reason you're rejecting this record is because you love sin and you love money." And you don't take the Bible or the record of Moses seriously, or any of the scriptures seriously. You're just selfish and greedy and awful. These chapters kind of end off on a pretty negative note. Moroni is speaking to the Lamanite or Lehite remnant, and he's encouraging them to accept Christ. But then Moroni just hits the Gentiles hard, and just says, "Look, you guys are bad news, and you need to shape up, or you're going to wish you had, because the judgment's coming, and you're going to see that I was telling the truth." Okay, so next week we dig into the Plates of Ether, and we'll talk about what's going on with that book, why did they include that record, and what's the purpose of it, the prophetic content of it. All right, that's it.